Hi, how you doing? And welcome back to a video on the channel. What we have for you today is a wildcard video leading up to game week 13. The blank game week for game week 12 is pretty much over and done with. Couple of games to go tonight, but we might as well start looking towards the next game week because there's not much turnaround. Deadline is Saturday morning and it's currently Thursday evening. So if you're planning on wildcarding, you don't have much time to do it. But the benefits of doing it right now is because you've got 4 game weeks left before the World Cup, and you can absolutely isolate those 4 weeks to benefit your team leading in to the break. So if you're new to the channel, any likes and subscribes greatly appreciated, especially on a small channel. They all count. And let's get into it. So we're going to start with teams to target. And the first up is Crystal Palace. So we just have 4 games here because that's all we've got until you get another wildcard over the World Cup, and they have great fixtures for this period. Personally, I wildcarded last game week and I put 2 Palace defenders in, but they conceded to Wolves. I do still think they've got nice fixtures from a defensive point of view. The toughest one you would say there is West Ham, but even then, they're struggling to create some chances or at least put it in the back of the net. Next up, we've got Everton, which is ironic because Everton and Crystal Palace play each other this weekend. But I do think defensively, they're both good teams. You know, Palace and Everton aren't scoring a lot of goals. So I do think it's a bit risky, but they could cancel each other out. And there's potential for clean sheets is there if you want to back Everton. The rest of their fixtures do look pretty good as well. Third, we've got Man City. Obviously, strength all over the pitch. I know they lost to Liverpool in the last time out, but they'll be coming back raring to go. They can really push for these 4 game weeks, and the fixtures are looking good. Next is Liverpool turning it around. They're grinding out results. I do think there's value to be had in their squad in the right places. I mean, you've also got players like Alisson who have got double-digit returns each of the last 2 game weeks, and with Forest, Leeds, and Southampton, they're good fixtures. And Spurs, they're still to be proving themselves against the big teams, so I don't necessarily see that as a must-avoid fixture for Liverpool. Finally, we've got Arsenal. Now, they do have Chelsea away, but the rest of those fixtures look great, and Arsenal are on form, and they have shown that they can do it against teams um, so far this season, and they've proved the doubters wrong up to this point, so there's no real reason to go against them top of the Premier League. Teams to avoid. So we start with Nottingham Forest. Now, anyway, I would just avoid Forest regardless of who their fixtures are. But starting off with Liverpool and Arsenal, that's 50% of your fixtures. If you fancy getting a player in against Brentford and Palace, don't get it in your wild card. Just use a free transfer further down the line. But if you're using a free transfer to get a Nottingham Forest player in, then the rest of your team must be pretty good. And if it's that good, what are you watching this video for? Spurs, the second team on this list, they have okay fixtures, but I'm not too much of a fan of their form at the moment. I watched the Man United game yesterday, and they were just on the back foot the whole time. And if it wasn't for Lloris, Man United could easily have scored 4. And I just don't really see the value in getting in someone like Kane or Son on a wild card. I think if you had them, I wouldn't necessarily transfer them out. But if you're wild carding, there's not much motivation to get them in. And then I think defensively, whilst they defended certain situations quite well, they were defending constantly, and I think they did get away with not conceding a couple more. Next up, we've got Southampton. The fixtures don't look good. Southampton don't look good. Um, I just don't see the need to get any in. I think defensively, they are difficult fixtures against Arsenal, Newcastle, and Liverpool. And from an attacking point of view, they're playing teams nearer the top of the table, or there's no real straightforward games there. Fourth, we have Chelsea. Now, whilst Chelsea are okay, they drew 0-0 with Brentford last night, and I just think, again, they've got some injuries, they're a bit disjointed, they're trying to work each other out and get players settled into the lineup still. And I think they're maybe a team to look at after the World Cup once they get a bit of time to train together and get certain injuries sorted out. But for now, I would just avoid them. And then finally, we have Leeds. A couple of good fixtures in there at home, so it's not absolutely must avoid. But then I just think if you are going to get Leeds in, where are you going to get those players from? Are you going to get Bamford up front instead of, Haaland, Kane, Mitrovic, Tony? someone like that? Or are you going to try and risk a defender? Maybe a cheap defender might be quite good if you're on a rotation right there, for those home fixtures. That's kind of up to you with Leeds. So on to the team, and we start in goal, and we're going to go with Gaeta. Whilst he hasn't kept a clean sheet in his last game, we did talk about Everton away, looking a pretty good game week for him. Moving on to the defence, we've got Anderson, Gomez, Cancelo, and Ben White. I think Gomez in particular is a brilliant value option, 4.4, 4.5 million player to get into Liverpool's team. I think you can use him to get more expensive players in elsewhere. But I think Liverpool, they're looking increasingly more solid as it goes on. I know they had to have a penalty save to keep a clean sheet yesterday, but I do like the fixtures as well. Forest away next game week is an absolute banker clean sheet, you would like to think. And then I think Ben White from Arsenal, they have good fixtures, and he's one of the top scoring defenders so far this season, and he's only 4.5 million. Whether you want the double up on Crystal Palace is up to you, but I wouldn't hate it if you did that. But you can equally just transfer out Anderson or rotate him on your bench. Onto the midfield, and this to me looks like a really strong midfield. Lots of good attacking players there that are the focal point of their team. Even someone like Foden, I think he's getting in the minutes. And while Salah's perform has been patchy, I mean, would you back against him against Nottingham Forest? He, for me, is potentially the captain of this wildcard team, and this team does also include Haaland. I think Salah could be a really good differential captain this game week. Someone like Zaha is scoring consistently, and if Palace score, he's usually involved. And for me, Saka is the most underrated fantasy league player of the season. He is getting a goal and assist almost every game, one or the other, and he's contributing everything to Arsenal. And so for me, he is more consistent than Martinelli, and he's worth that price increase on Martinelli at this current time. Finally, we've got the attack. Mitrovic, he has good fixtures. He's got a tough game towards the end of it before the World Cup, but up until that point, I think you just ride the wave. He's yet to play this game week, so obviously, if he gets injured again or something, then that's something to monitor. And obviously, Haaland is there. Whilst I do think, Haaland, he's not. He has. I mean, you look at Haaland and you say, "Oh, he's not scored in a game or something," and that just goes to show how crazy his form's been. But he is a lot of money, and I do still think, even if he isn't going to perform at the moment until his ownership becomes a lot less, you need to have him in your team just to safeguard your rank. On the bench, we have a pretty good, well-rounded bench, to be honest. Solanke is about 5.6, 5.5 million, and he is a good player just to have to maybe come in the rotation. You might want him instead of Anderson in defence. I definitely wouldn't bet against that. Same for the goalkeeper as well. I think if you wanted to play Ward instead of Guaita this next game week with Wolves away, I think that's a decent decision. Bueno on my last bench, he is about 3.9 million, but he started this week and got a clean sheet. So that is something definitely to monitor, because if you've got a 3.9 million player starting in Fantasy League, you kind of need him on your bench at least, and then you can play the fixtures. And then we've got Andreas as well. Leads away, I think he is still 4.5, 4.6 million, and he is just worth having on your bench to play those fixtures and get him in as and when. Couple of tips there. So, dead end your team. So, what we mean when we say is dead end your team, it means that you don't need to look past game week 16. You can plan your team just for those four fixtures, or go all in those, because at the World Cup you get another wild card anyway. So I do think something like just target those four fixtures, no need to look past them, and look out for the quick flips. So what we mean by that is, you don't, when you're not looking long term in your team, you could potentially just do transfer for a game week. Just take the risk. If you've got a solid team and you're wild carding, if you're using your wild card this game week, there's probably not loads of transfers you want to do for the next few game weeks. So it is that 1 week punt where you think, actually, you know what, I'm just going to go for this player, and you make the move. I think that is really underrated. So yeah, let me know what you think about the team. Thank you for all the support. I am looking at potentially for this team captaining Salah over Haaland, but let me know what you think. And like I said at the start, any support on the channel is greatly appreciated. Had a few new subscribers after the last video. So if you're still watching at this point, uh, please support the channel. And I will see you in the next one.